Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris of Velo Sews on social media. Thanks for watching and listening to Sew Over 50's podcast on Sew Organised Style. Today, Jenni Smith and Kay Walsh are the fascinating authors of Menopause Makes. So this book has some really good information about menopause, and the sewing projects are thoughtfully designed to help manage the effects that menopause can have on your mind and body. Grab a cuppa and relax with us. Jenni and Kay, thank you for being on the podcast today for Sober 50 on Sew Organised Style. You both look very warm at the moment, very warm and cozy.
It's cold here, isn't it, in the UK? In fact, I thought it was getting a little bit warmer and it's dipped again. So yeah, we've got our woolies on today, haven't we?
We have, yes. We live in Yorkshire in the north of England, so it's definitely a little bit cooler up here, I think, than probably down in London, isn't it?
Yes, and definitely different to how it'll be for you over there, I'm sure.
Oh, we just deal with the weather as we can. And I can tell you for certain that there are quite a few listeners and viewers of the podcast who are from the UK and who are from the north. So hi to them as well.
That's wonderful. Well, yeah, and thank you for having us.
Yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. When I was approached to have you both on the podcast because you've written the book called Menopause Makes, I was wondering which way this book was going to go. So, Jenni and Kay, can you give me a brief outline of your background and how Menopause Makes came about?
Well, we've been working together in the sewing world for 8 or so years. We used to run an in-person studio in our town where we live, and we taught dressmaking and quilting and all kinds of sewing and stuff. And then we ended up going online kind of really during COVID because obviously we couldn't get people into the real life studio. But before that, you were sewing even more, weren't you?
Yeah, I've sewed since I was a child, and then I spent a year in Canada when my eldest child was a baby, so 19 years ago now, and I learnt to quilt whilst I was there and haven't stopped since. I also dressmaked and things as a child. My grandfather had a business making trailer tents and caravans, and my mum and my grandmother made the upholstery and things, so I just grew up around sewing machines, I suppose. But when I came back from Canada, I wanted everyone to take up sewing. I was on a bit of a mission and did a promises auction at our school where I promised that I would teach people how to make a quilt, basically. And we tap danced together before all of this. That's where we actually met. A little part in the book about that. So then I taught Kay to quilt. And so I suppose our friendship and our career has developed over all that time together. And we wrote a book with Liberty of London, that came out in 2020. That was 15 projects, one for each decade of Liberty's history. So we were working with the archivists and designing quilts and projects and storytelling. And we were working with Tana Lawn, which is a beautiful light fabric, weren't we? And one of the quilts particularly, like we were working on this book a lot in the evenings, and we kind of were saying, it was floaty light, and we were kept saying, this is the menopause quilt, really, because a lot of the women we've taught, and we were a little bit older than us, and they were definitely coming into that phase of their life. So it kind of snuck up on us a bit, didn't it? Yeah. Things like that. And then things the blouse.
And conversations that we just realised we were then having all the time, just between the two of us, because that's the age that we're at, and friends obviously at the similar ages. And yeah, we just realised, I think, more and more that menopause was such a big part of life, really, isn't it? You can't, or it should be, in the sense of, talking about it. And we just realised we were talking about it a lot, weren't we? And then kind of thinking, well, imagine if you had a really nice kind of light top that you didn't feel too conscious in, and was you could sleep under a lovely quilt that might not be your heavy duvet if you took, because I'm still always hot in the night. I'm always complaining.
And you made me a sleep mask about 3 birthdays ago, didn't you? Just with Liberty, and then some cozy fleece actually on the back, wasn't it? And And I was like, that's actually really useful. And so it was really a bit of a light bulb that all these you have things ticking away at the back of your brain. And then one day, I think we just sat down and wrote up 10 projects, didn't we? That some that already we'd made or we were interested in making, like I say, we love dressmaking, and we just wrote up these 10 projects and wrote up a pitch, an idea of what we wanted to do, because I think people always, it's wonderful to have a segue into sewing. We've spent our lives trying to convince other people that this is a fantastic thing to do, and I think it's often a life event or something to have a motivation to do it. And then we know once people come into our world, as you will know, then they don't want to stop, do they? And it's such a fantastic community, but making people take that first leap is hard. And I think menopause and perimenopause is a time when, like, genuinely people's self-confidence can take a real knock, and people feel a bit not themselves, and
a bit lost.
We were like, actually, if we can genuinely empower women at that time in their life, and we can get them sewing, then hopefully it will help. So it comes from a very genuine place. It's kind of what we've always wanted to do, is get more people sewing, but it just feels relevant, doesn't it, now, because it's our reality. And I think probably when you invest your time and energy in something that feels very real for you, you can try and make a difference, can't you? Hopefully.
The foreword that Dr. Hannah Davies put together was really insightful. How did you source her? How did you find her?
Well, with some help from the publishers, actually, wasn't it? They approached various people, and she thankfully said yes. And we want the book to be enjoyable for lots of people, but also to have those facts of, menopause is a real thing. We're not. Yes, it's lighthearted in some ways, the book. We want people to have a bit of fun, hopefully, whilst they're sewing, but also, if there's some real knowledge in there. And we've already had friends, haven't we, and people who've seen an advanced copy maybe of the book who've said, oh, they've learned something, or they think maybe this will be great if their husbands can read it, or their children, or whoever, people in their lives. So we wanted absolutely for there to be some real information in there as well, so that if people, because again, I think it comes out of those conversations we were having, wasn't it? And because I'm a bit older than Jenni, I was going through definitely perimenopause before, and kind of, why am I feeling all of these things? And then looking it up and going, okay, there's so many symptoms. You might, because I think historically we thought, I've never had a hot flush like in a day. Yes, I get hot at night and I get night sweats, but I've never had that one typical thing that most people think of. But there were like 10 other symptoms at least that I think I could tick off when I read the perimenopause list. And it's like, okay, this is the thing. Like, why are we not talking about it more? Why do we not know more about it? And yes, over the last few years, it does seem to be coming into the mainstream a bit more. But again, it was relevant to us, wasn't it? And our people that we know.
And I think it was important for us that people who buy the book and read it know that we're taking it seriously. So I think having that medical opinion, it's not prescriptive. She's not saying,
no, you have to do
you have to take this, you should be on this medication, nothing like that, but just giving a context. And I think when it's coming from a medical professional, then that gives you the confidence perhaps to go to the doctors yourself, or talk, at least talk to somebody about what you're going through. So we were really, obviously, Search Press kind of coordinated it, but we read the drafts and everything before they went into the book, and we both read it and were like, yes, that's exactly how we wanted it to be. Because she also talks about the importance again of creativity, and that we know that doing something with your hands and getting out of your head a bit sometimes is enough to just for some of those symptoms to make you to take the edge off and give you something else to focus on, don't we? We get grumpy if we don't sew, don't we? Definitely. Do you, Maria, as well?
I get the jitters a little bit. But I use sewing as a goal. If I've got something else to do and it's time-based, I'll always have a sewing project at the end of it that will motivate me to finish what I'm supposed to be doing and not.
So it's your treat waiting for you. Yeah, that's
it is.
nice.
It's the carrot.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenni, in the beginning part of the book, it covers a lot of materials and the tools, etc. Is that information something that you've gathered over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Kay said, we've taught in person for many years at the studio. So you get to know what people's pain points are and anxieties. And, I think equally with tools, it can be really intimidating when you start out. Historically, quilting was a craft that people did absolutely to make do amends, so that it's finding that balance, isn't it, of yes, you can go out and buy all the fancy new gear, but equally generations of people before us haven't been doing that. So I think we always try and pitch it so that it's accessible for everyone, but we've tried and tested and had many students try and test everything probably that's out there over the years. So I guess, and it was the same when we wrote the Liberty book, is that we put together a key toolkit of what we feel are the most useful things, but they don't always have to be massively expensive. Like I think with a pair of scissors, actually the most important thing is that when they sit in your hand, that they're comfortable on your hand. They might look really fancy, but they might be really not that comfortable, and just simple things like that. And people always, they'd come to the studio, wouldn't they? And they'd get the pins out that have been in the kit box for like 20 years that are rusty, and then they're putting it into the nice fabric. So I think we wrote in the book, like, just treat yourself to a nice new tin of pins and maybe a sharp rotary cutter blade, like little things, I think actually then make it all a little bit more enjoyable. We don't like the term kind of selfish sewing. People say, doing some selfish sewing. It's like, well, it's not selfish. It's absolutely your hobby and your passion. I don't think guys say,
and self-care, isn't it?
I'm going off to play selfish golf or whatever, do they? We're like, this is not, it's not selfish sewing. Just it's your passion. You're entitled to treat yourself to some decent kit, and then and also work with fabric that you really love and that you want to enjoy. I don't kind of believe in
saving the stuff for the best,
because if it's something that you love and then you make a project with it, then you're going to love that project, aren't you? I find that, I think when you're investing time in something, you want people to just enjoy it, don't you?
Yeah. And with, again, lots of people have said over the years, haven't they? Or you realise if you're using that stuff that you like, if you love the fabric you've bought, you're probably going to love whatever you make out of it because you liked looking at it in the shop, didn't you? So use the nice fabric.
And there are certain things, there's like we've put Aurifil threads in there and things because they're just, I guess they're companies that we've had a really lovely relationship with for many years. And we know and trust them, and so wherever we can, if we can educate people on what we think a way to do we'll try. But because people always ask, don't they? I think whenever we put a video out or a workshop, people kind of want to know that information as well. So we try to share it where we can.
So, Kate, when it came to picking the 10 projects, did you have more than 10 projects for you and Jenni to choose from?
Yeah, we did, definitely. And what we absolutely wanted was, again, for them to have those links with the symptoms. That was important for us as well, because it's another way of saying, well, these are the things you might be feeling, and this hopefully could maybe help, or this might be the stage you're at. Like, we said, at this age, you're likely to be in that. Your children might be leaving home if you've got them, or elderly parents, or whatever it is. There's lots going on in life quite often in this midlife period, aren't there? So it was things that we wanted absolutely for them to have those links and also have lots of skills. We're hoping that it's suitable for many people, whether you already love sewing, there'll be some nice projects in there that you'll just love to make. And if you haven't made anything, they're not hard. We talk you through all of the steps, and so we're hoping it's a segue in for many people who haven't maybe done any sewing at all. Or we thought, didn't we, that lots of people made face masks and things in COVID, so maybe they bought a sewing machine. and then they've not really done anything with it since. Well, then you can start with the eye mask, and it's very similar. It's that kind of a small project, and then there's lots of things that are accessible, and that's what we wanted. So yeah, we had to whittle it down, didn't we, from a larger lot of things but hopefully there's something in there for everyone to have a go at and find something that they might like making for themselves or someone else.
We definitely had to get a quilt in there because, we're on a mission to get people quilting, and always we love it when dressmakers cross over to quilting and we get quilters dressmaking. So we knew that, didn't we? And we wanted to put a zip in there and some curves, and because they're all skills that we love teaching as well.
But those skills, with the zipper and the curves, they are some of the basics for sewing clothes for anybody. And I also saw that the clothing pieces that you've got in there are size inclusive because they go up to a 60-inch hip.
Which was again very important to us. We wanted them to be inclusive. Again, it's a time in your life again where your self-confidence can take a bit of a dive, or many people will say your body changes a lot quite often during menopause, perimenopause. I think most people feel that, don't they? And then so if you can make something that makes you feel comfortable, so we didn't want, we wanted the garments to be easy to wear, so you don't feel like, oh, okay, this I can't wear that because it's not doing what I want it to do. Hopefully you'll feel confident in it, whatever.
And the apron pattern is actually based on a pattern that we released as a company quite a lot of years ago, and we know that hundreds and hundreds of women have made that, and it's flattering from a side profile and at the back, because it doesn't have some aprons kind of have a huge overlap at the back which sticks out a little bit. It's still a really flattering cut at all sizes, isn't it? Like we've tested it with lots of our friends and what have you. So and the jacket equally, you can feel like quite fancy in it if you want to, but it's light, isn't it?
Light and comfortable.
We had quite a scary dressmaking teacher who was she was the first lady to teach sewing on the BBC here in the UK, Anne Ladbury, and she wrote 40 books on dressmaking. She sadly passed away during COVID, didn't she? But so we were brought up, like we had courses with her for many years. It was very old school. You weren't really allowed to read the instructions. You were allowed to look at the pattern, and then you had to figure out how to construct garments properly. And she used to say, like, a well-fitted garment, you should never feel it on your body, really. If it fits right, you don't have those kind of pressure points and things. So we've kind of learned a lot over the years, haven't we? And teaching people French seams, which is on both the garments in the book. They're really washable and usable then, but they're also like, you feel super proud, don't you? Like I remember when I sewed my first French seams, and it's all very neat and tidy, and it's exciting, isn't it? I think so. Any skills we can pass along, it's good.
Now, one of the key things that I thought was really amazing with the project is you've got 4 guest designers that I'd never heard of, but when I looked at their backgrounds, gosh, you 2 are lucky.
We are lucky. We thank our lucky stars every day for the work that we do. The reason we wanted to put the guest designers in, a few things really. One, we think if people are new to sewing, we knew that when we started, it was like, oh, where can you get fabric? Who are the, what should we be looking for? So we thought it was a nice way of saying, well, we really like the designs these people do, so go and have a look at them, and you might like them, and they're all quite different. And we wanted to shout about women again in business. Yeah. So these are all, women who are similar ages to us, who are doing amazing things. So that's what we kind of wanted to do. So we've got, they're all people, that we know and love. Karen Lewis is a British designer here, and she does all kinds of, she does her own screen printing that we use in the little tub. Mm-hmm. And she also designs fabric as well, doesn't she? Fabric lines for Andover. And then we've got Sally Kelly, who is amazing. She used to be one of the big designers at Liberty for many years, and now has her own line for Wyndham, and they're just stunning prints, aren't they?
Yeah, she designed Tresco, which is a beautiful print based on Tresco Gardens on the Isle of Scilly for Liberty. That's my absolute favourite, which was in the Liberty book as well. And so we love Sally's work, don't we?
Yeah. Alice Caroline is, she sells lots of Liberty fabric over here in the UK. And so we love Liberty. As we said, we did the book with them. We wanted to get some Liberty in there as well, didn't we? And and she's a brilliant businesswoman as well, isn't she?
Yeah, and they make quilts. She has a massive drive every year for her SOS project, and then they put quilts into orphanages or women in difficult situations. And so her whole business is something we really believe in. And then the last one is Rashia Coleman-Hale, who's a designer in the US. And we were really excited because we'd used her fabric for the potions pouch. And when we went to do the photo shoot for the book designer totally fell for Rashida's designs. And at one point we had a Zoom call and she was like, would you mind if we approached Rashida to design the cover of the book? And we were like, no, that'd be like that would be amazing. And then like the first drafts we got back, we were like, she totally nailed, we wanted it to feel really inclusive and positive. And there are all these women on the cover up to all kinds of different sewing. And so it's really nice for us to celebrate them, and we'll get them more involved once the book's out as well, with giveaways and, talking with them and shouting about their work a bit more, won't we?
Yeah. So more amazing women, that's what we love, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's always a challenge when you're designing and making a book that you choose fabrics as well. It's that balance of you want to inspire people, but you also want people to be able to get fabrics to do the projects. So, that's not always easy for people to choose, is it?
No.
So if we can give them pointers, plus we did a few pages on full of confidence and ideas for how people could choose their own fabrics as well, because we know again that it's not as easy as it sounds for some people. It can be really tricky to make all those overwhelming decisions at the start before you even get going. So wherever we can, we've just tried to help people, haven't we? Get off the starting blocks.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If you start, that's the hardest bit, isn't it? Yeah. Sometimes just starting something. So yeah, that's the advice, isn't it? Just try and start.
Exactly. So Jenni, which is your favourite project?
I like the tote bag, the weekend away tote, because I think there's lots of really cool like webbing and straps and things out there. And I like the little pocket inside that is super neat and tidy. I like that we've kind of curved off the edges at the bottom so you don't get things stuck in it. So I feel like it's an achievable enough project. Like the motivation behind that is, if you're feeling a bit rubbish, or like to think for yourself that you could just go away, even if it's just for a few hours, trip out on your own or a night away. I feel like it's a project you could sit down and make nice and easily. It's got lots of personality because you can choose a different fabric inside, outside, and the webbing, and then people, I'm sure, are likely to really notice that. You can't really go out and about in your eye mask, I suppose. So I feel like if women made that and then went out, they would get compliments. I'm 1,000% sure. And I think I like that because that's what we want. Because I think when someone says, oh, where did you get your bag? And you say you've made it yourself, that's an incredible feeling. And I think something like that would then spur people on to want to make more of the projects, so I like that. And like I've made 3 or 4 of them already because I just keep seeing different combinations of fabrics and things. So I think there's 2 that ended up in the book, but since then made a couple more. So it's obviously just something, it doesn't have to be something that's massively technically difficult, I think, to have a real impact, is it?
No. And in the book, the mission is for creativity, bringing colour, and doing something for yourself. And the fact that you've made the weekend away tote 3 times because it's got all of those possibilities is a really great example of why being able to achieve the mission of the book.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you know what you want to achieve with a book, and then you do it. But then we've had that a little bit of time since we got the patterns, and so again, testing the patterns, the instructions, triple checking everything, but then just getting back to just making things and enjoying it, which sometimes when it becomes your job as well, you don't always have that time or enjoyment. So I think I have really enjoyed it, and also I really like the photography and everything.
Yeah,
for that project, it's just one that's really stuck in my mind, I think.
Okay, what's your favorite?
It is really tricky but I think the one that pops into my head is the placemats, actually. And I think because over the years I've realized that I like hand sewing more than I thought I ever would. Like, I think, again, it was one of those things. I didn't really sew when I was a child. My experience of sewing at school was awful, really. We you had a lesson. I think I broke a needle in the sewing machine straight away, and then didn't really get to go on them again. So, and again, that's another thing we kind of thought of at the time was there might be lots of people who've had similar bad experiences and think they don't like sewing, or that they can't do it, or they're not creative. And I think I was definitely one of those people before I met Jenni, and I'd started to try and do a little bit of sewing before we got together, hadn't I? But I would have said, I'm not really a creative person at all. And Jenni was like, well, you are. and everyone is, probably, really. We just don't allow ourselves to be. We stop being playful like when we were children, don't we? And if you have had a bad experience, whatever it is, it can put you off. So I think I thought, I'm not that. I don't really like, I can't imagine just sitting there and hand sewing, but I love it. I love the mindfulness of it. So I think the placemats, because you could take it anywhere. You only need your needle and a thread and some small bits of fabric. You can take it in the car when you're waiting for something, when you're hanging around for children or whatever it might be, or in the doctor's surgery or whatever. The portability, I think, of a project can be really nice. And then again, it just gives you something to do with your hands, and then it feels mindful and relaxing, hopefully. So yeah.
Well, you've been moving house and had like quite big life changes, haven't you?
Yeah.
So I think like you've enjoyed them as well, because you haven't had your machine set up or what have you, for lots of reasons. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, a nice bit of hand sewing is good for me.
Yeah, it's getting you through that period of changing house, so you've still got your hands in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there a project that you would have liked to have included, or we can't talk about that?
No.
No.
There's definitely there's always lots of things whirring around in our minds, but I think also when we wrote this book, and when we talked to the publishers about it, is that hopefully there's scope for it to not just be a book, that there might be a life beyond that. There might be spin-offs and things, so we're not discounting anything. I've got like about 6 notebooks, haven't I, on the go at any one time,
and various boxes that say Jenni's work in progress. Jenni's
but I think, as again, we're always open to that, aren't we? And we're hoping that we can build a community around this, and support people in whatever they choose to then go off and do, because we're teaching basic patchwork and basic dressmaking skills. There's absolutely then the opportunity for people that want to then develop that to go in many, many different directions. Like, in the Liberty book, there's 15 more quilt projects and things, isn't there? So hopefully things will evolve as we go along, won't they?
Yeah.
And as new symptoms and experiences come to light, I'm sure they'll trigger new ideas for what we need next, won't they?
In the back of my mind, I keep thinking, and this isn't to do with Menopause Makes, but your Liberty book, doing the research and working with the archives of Liberty, that must have been an amazing time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember now that there's thousands and thousands of prints and things, and it's all, actually the actual archive is in like an air-conditioned private aircraft hangar kind of a thing, but they have quite a lot of resources, like seeing the original wood block cuts, and just learning about like how they set up their design studio and everything. It is an incredible company. They used to print Tarna lawn in the north of England, like not far from where I grew up. So kind of I've been collecting Liberty fabric since I was about 8. And then we'd been to shared exhibitions in London about the history of the company. You know, it is an iconic haberdashery and everything, isn't it? Especially for British people. But I know like Australian people, and we did a lot of lectures when that book came out to guilds all across the world online, and we know it's loved around the world. Lots of people have that nostalgia again, and that's those reasons to tell stories with the fabric, don't they? So
yeah,
it was. But everything we do, I think it's actually always about the people. Isn't it? You know, we were going to jokingly, we were going to dedicate the book, because we always have brain fog and we can't remember anything, to like something like who do you call it and thingamabob, because we never remember who to. but in the end, we did kind of dedicate it to, you know, to all the women that have either been through our studio or we've met at quilt shows and things, because sewing classes, because we do find it's, and I'm sure you do, it is an incredible community of people, isn't it? And we feel very lucky that we get to work in this sphere, I think, every day, don't we?
Yeah, and I think partly because, you know we're lucky that we've got each other and we work together every day, and that has helped us both through many times, hasn't it? Difficult times, good times, whatever they might be. But not everyone has that. So if sewists can come together in whatever way and help each other, like we know that when we had the in-person studio, that great conversations happen when you get together with other people and you say, well, I mean, we've put the world to rights so many times in our studio and learned a lot from older women, like you said earlier, and that's wonderful, isn't it? And if people can do that, those conversations that just happen are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah.
So is the next step then, from now that you've published Menopause Makes, are you using social media as well to keep that conversation going? And if you are, how can people get involved?
Yep, we have got a new Instagram, what do you call it, account, I guess?
Yes, it's an account.
Just for Menopause Makes. So that's where initially we're hoping the concept, we've got a website that is going to accompany the book with some tutorials as well. So if people have never sewn before and they think, okay, I need some, because we know lots of people are real visual learners, not everyone can get it just from reading. So we've going to have a video tutorial for every project as well, if people want to do that. And again, have those conversations, hopefully.
Yeah, and we're at the minute, we're the account historically of all the work that we've done, like Liberty and everything else, is at where Jenni and Kay create on Instagram, which is historically where we've always been more active. So we're always there, like that's our mainstay. But the reason we do want to have a dedicated space for Menopause Makes as well. And then we're hoping to, we're popping up at sewing shows here in the UK and in-person events. Want to get back to doing some more of that, but then hopefully that will grow as well, and we'll be able to travel a little bit more and set up events and get people talking, and then people can email us as well. We do always really love to see the results of what people make, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah,
because they're all big investments of time and energy, so it's really nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if people want to post their projects from what they've done on Menopause Makes, the book, would they use the hashtag Menopause Makes?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then, cool. And the website is menopausemakes.com, and there's also a contact form on that as well, which will come directly to us. So that's another way, if, not everybody loves social media equally. So we do always have, old school means to get in touch, and we do communicate in that way as well. We still get letters, don't we, sometimes?
Oh, they're the best.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, We've got a few
letters
people
from the US, haven't we?
Yeah,
Oh, it
and
makes my day.
Canada. So like that's always nice as well when people write to us.
Yeah.
However they want.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Jenni and Kay, thank you for coming on to Sub 50's podcast on So Organised Style. I'm really pleased that I got to meet you both, and I'm hoping that Menopause Makes does bring the community who needs that information together and also gets involved in sewing.
Yeah.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thanks for having us.
You're most welcome. Bye. This episode of So Organised Style podcast for Sober 50 was video and audio produced by me, Maria Theoharis, in my sewing room with permission of Jenni Smith and Kay Walsh. Sound by bensound.com. If you'd like to support the production of So Organised Style podcast, pop over to Patreon. Make sure you direct message Sandy on Sober 50 to support their challenges and posts. Go back through the podcast archive to hear and see more people from the sewing community. I look forward to being with you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.